Today's episode is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/1pvs2p. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, believe it or not. Again, that's audibletrial, trial.com/1pvs2p.
Thanks to Audible for supporting our podcast, and thanks to you for supporting us.
Sony finally announces the new PlayStation 4 Pro, Nintendo reveals a new Mario smartphone game, and we discuss our Deus Ex Mankind Divided and Battlefield 1 beta impressions. All that plus this week's new game releases, announcements, and more. It's Thursday, September 8th, 2016, and you're listening to the 1P vs. 2P podcast. I'm Taylor Ray.
I'm Ryan Ray.
And let's start off with
First Attack.
First, before we get into our first segment, I did want to start off with reading one of our YouTube comments on our channel, which I wanted to say thank you to Moak, who writes, I enjoyed the podcast, will subscribe. Both of you are really well-spoken and informed. Have you had prior experience with podcasting? Thanks, Moak. Yeah, we do post our podcast episodes up on YouTube, so I know a lot of you listeners aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, which is fine, but we do post audio-only episodes up there. And I wanted to say thank you to Moak for that. Yes, we really appreciate it. We do quite a bit of research that goes into each one of our episodes. Special shout out to Ryan, who does compile the week's biggest news stories, does a lot of the sort of back-end research. So we do sound well-informed. That's really the foundation of our podcast as a whole. And personally, I actually majored in radio broadcasting, so I was sort of looking into a career into broadcast journalism. Ryan is also starting off as a newspaper journalist. He also had his bachelor's degree in print journalism. So we both sort of have backgrounds in that, and I feel like it really helped us start this sort of side passion project. And as really, really passionate gamers, been playing video games for more than 20 years, we talked amongst ourselves quite a bit, discussed video games a lot. We decided, why don't we start a podcast?
I definitely, and I would say on the top that you also do a lot of AV audio engineering on the back end after we record our podcasts. Taylor does some noise filtering, cut out some of the pops and some of the ums and likes, and some of the, frankly, mistakes that we make while we podcast. We don't stream this out live while we record. This is a pre-recorded show. And Taylor does a lot of work on the back end to actually take the time to produce the show. So special thanks to him. I do kind of the front end stuff, manage the editorial side of things, and Taylor does a lot of the support back end stuff to make the show sound as good and crisp as it does.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to give ourselves pats on the back, and now that we're over that, and just to answer your question, by the way, Moak, with have you ever had prior experience with podcasting? No, not really. We only started this early last year, but we also do write blog posts. We both have done that on the side for other community blogs. I know, Ryan, you've written just some stuff for giantbomb.com, and I used to write some community blog posts on destructoid.com, two major gaming outlets on the internet. And we decided, hey, why don't we just do it ourselves, host it ourselves, start our own podcast, start our own site, and share it with all of you guys. So thanks to you all who subscribe and regularly listen. And we look forward to any comments. Send them our way. You can even submit questions. We'll read it aloud on our show. You can tweet us at 1pvs2p_podcast, comment on our Facebook page. You can email us, podcast@1pvs2p.com, or do what this guy just did and comment even on our YouTube channel. Anyway, we see it all, so it doesn't matter how it gets to us. We'd love to read your feedback and your comments and questions for our show. All right, let's move right along to our news. Big story. Ryan, I know earlier today, we're recording this on Wednesday, September 7th. And this is right after the Apple event and then the PlayStation meeting. So two major industry events that both covered big topics in gaming. Let's start off with everything that Sony revealed at the PlayStation meeting, including what's been leaked for a while now, the new PS4 Slim, which is actually replacing the current PS4 base model, all right? They're not calling it the PS4 Slim, although it is a slimmer version. We've talked about it before. But now we know that it's going to cost $299, so $300. And the redesigned system and controller will be out real soon. It's coming out September 15th, 2016. So how many days is that from today? It's next Thursday. So a week out. People had their hands on this thing, over a week ago already?
Right. So a few mom and pop vendors broke the street date on the PS4 Slim before it was officially acknowledged as existing. A few bloggers and journalists got their hands on it. And this is Sony's really first chance to acknowledge that this is a real product. Like you said, this is replacing the current base model PS4. Not going to be a different distinction between the PS4 Slim and the current PS4, other than the fact that it's going to be, slimmer. It's going to have, a new controller and capacitive buttons. The price point is perfect. I think it's coming out a lot sooner than I would have anticipated. $300 is a really great upgrade. We'll get into this with the other bigger PS4 hardware announcement, but I'm not really sure who these new PS4 consoles are for. Right now, there are currently about 40 million PS4s out there, and I'm not sure that everybody is going to want to trade in for a slightly smaller PS4 or a slightly more powerful PS4. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, this PS4 Slim, I'm glad that they finally confirmed it. I'm glad it's coming out real soon. That seems like the right price point for that thing. This seems like the console for people who currently don't own a PS4.
Exactly, because it's actually phasing out the current PS4 model. They're going to stop producing those. Eventually, you're going to stop seeing those in stores. And so if you just want to buy a PS4, you're getting the slim version going forward. So no real technical upgrade here. It's just the form factor is a lot smaller. And then the other huge news about the PS4 Pro, which we knew all along was codenamed the Neo. Some people were nicknaming it the PS4 4K because of all the rumored 4K output. It's confirmed. It's a new, more powerful PS4 supporting 4K resolutions and HDR, and we'll get into what those mean. It's going to cost $400, so retailing at $399, and will be out on November 10th this year. So a little bit later, but let's break it down. What does this all mean? What are we getting for when there's a $100 cost difference between the new PS4 Slim and this PS4 Pro? Ryan, can you break it down?
Sure. So looking here at the specs, let's lead off with what lead PS4 system architect Mark Cerny said at the PlayStation meeting. He said, "Our goal with the PlayStation 4 Pro is to deliver high-fidelity graphical experiences." And he got into that basically this has a faster CPU. It's included a 1 terabyte hard drive. Currently, the PS4 has a 500 gig hard drive in it, and an upgraded GPU. The PS4 Pro is also going to be backwards compatible with all PS4 games. They had a little interesting marketing word during the meeting. They said it's going to be forward compatible.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does forward compatible mean?
So, okay. HDR and 4K gaming is what Microsoft and Sony are trying to make a thing. Basically, these are the new standards for TVs. Right now, if you want this kind of standard in your TV content, you have to buy a very expensive TV. Currently, if you want a like halfway decent thing that also support a 4K TV that also supports HDR, you're going to be looking at probably spending around $2,500 and up right now. And Sony actually admitted this during their presentation that 4K and HDR right now are marketing buzzwords. Taylor, can you explain to me what the actual difference is in resolution?
Sure. There's really a lot of confusion about what 4K content is and what HDR does. But as I understand it, let's start off with the HDR piece because that's a little bit easier to explain. A lot of TVs that are running current HD content, full HD, 1080p, even 720p, there are black and white levels. So the difference between the darkest of the darks and the lightest of the light on TVs that you're seeing with the naked eye. HDR gives you a better range, so you see somewhat better color and lighting effects. That's the layman's way I can put it. When it comes to 4K, so there's really not a lot of 4K content out there right now as it stands. This might change with Sony, especially with this, and Microsoft also with the upcoming Project Scorpio. Essentially, you have a lot of new media coming out that's being released with an ultra high definition resolution, this 4K. Images will be crisper, sharper than at what a current full HD resolution is at 1080p, and even before that at 720p. So theoretically, that content will just basically look better. But the major point here is that in order to get the 4K content, you do have to have a 4K ready TV or monitor. Otherwise, you're not going to see the difference. Now, with the PS4 Pro, if you don't have a 4K TV, Sony has promised that you'll get a small graphical upgrade. There is a little bit of a noticeable difference, but the real question here for a lot of consumers is it worth the $100 price difference from the base model PS4, which will now be the PS4 Slim, versus the PS4 Pro? Is it worth it if you do not own a 4K TV, which right now in the market are very, 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 very expensive. A lot of them are not priced under $1,000 or even $1,500 right now.
This graphical upgrade to me, and also for anybody watching the stream like I was, you're watching a stream of a stream, and it's very compressed.
Exactly.
Like you said, 4K content. You know, our internet here in the United States isn't the best with bit rates and video compression and all this other stuff that goes on. All this reads to me is that right now we don't really know what it looks like. You have to kind of be there to see it. And to me, this reads like you walk into a Best Buy or some other electronics store, and you have to kind of really see it to believe it. This seems like such a minor thing that you have to really be like technically savvy or have kind of a trained eye. To me, I just look at a TV connected to a PS4 Pro right now and probably say like, oh, I guess that looks a little bit brighter. I guess the sweat beads on Lara Croft look a tiny bit more defined. But what does that actually mean? And we'll get into some of the comments that the internet has reacted. But this, frankly, if you're that sensitive to graphical upgrades, like, why not just have a PC where you can probably do all this, connect your graphics cards, buy the fat tower, that your tower of power for the PC that will be able to actually output 4K. And by the way, these new iterative consoles, both Scorpio and the PS4 Pro, aren't going to support 4K natively. Powerful PCs right now can just barely do that with connected graphics cards. So for such a minor thing, I don't know why you wouldn't just upgrade your PC.
I think the reason why is because it's still, for PCs, cost prohibitive. Graphic cards, like right now, everyone's talking about the new NVIDIA, the GTX is at 1080, is that right?
Mm-hmm. The 1080 and the 1070.
Those two are the latest and greatest. And while graphics cards, as they get older, right, keep coming down in price, that's only one component you're looking to upgrade. But think about the other pieces that you would need to upgrade. If you want to run games smoothly at a high frame rate, at a consistent frame rate, and you're dealing with streaming those games as well, you need a really great processor. You need enough RAM, right? You need to think about cooling. Do you need to overclock anything? An out-of-the-box turnkey solution like a console, right? With this PS4 Pro, and then with the upcoming Scorpio. We don't know too much about the Scorpio, but theoretically, right? When you're talking about something that's priced at $400, $500, let's say, right? Versus, a whole complete tower, building something from scratch with a PC, which can be upwards of $800, $1,000 easily for high-end components, right? That, to me, is why a lot of consumers there's still a market for home consoles connected to a living room TV, to a home theater setup. Whatever you've got is it's a lot smaller pill to swallow versus building your own PC from scratch. But let's get back to more about the PS4 Pro specs, because here was the major feature people were looking for that was missing. And now we have a PS4 Pro that will not play 4K Blu-rays, the latest and greatest. And then you look at the Microsoft's Xbox One S, which does play 4K Blu-rays. It just seems mind-boggling why Sony wouldn't put that in this new PS4 Pro.
Right. It seems like when the main reason that Sony kind of pushed out on the original PS2 and on the PS3, they made their boxes more not just for gaming, they're more like multimedia entertainment centers. The PS2 with DVDs and the PS3 with Blu-rays, like those formats eventually won out. Sony backed the right horse. Microsoft did not. And now we're seeing kind of the flip happening. Sony's box is coming out sooner, but not supporting the thing that Microsoft's current box does. And I'm not sure why Sony decided to make that decision. Does that make the hard drive in the disk drive in the PS4 Pro more expensive, and therefore they didn't want to do that? Is this something that they can potentially change in a patch? It's hard to say. And also, if this is currently the standard that the Xbox One S can do, we can imagine that this will be the standard moving forward for their Project Scorpio.
Yeah, it was very confusing that is missing.
I want to get into two last points, and then we'll get into a reader question on this topic. So they did say that every PS4 model, the base PS4 model that's currently out there, the PS4 Slim, and this new PS4 Pro will get HDR support in a new firmware update next week. Who knows what that's going to look like, because none of us have HDR ready TVs. You can get a 4K TV currently now. I'm not sure who's going to buy one right now. But anyway, let's talk about the games, because they did show some games with this new graphical fidelity. They showed off clips from Watch Dogs 2, the current Deus Ex Mankind Divided, For Honor. They showed off some Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and some first gameplay footage from Mass Effect Andromeda, all in this 4K HDR resolution. From what I can tell, it all looked pretty great. It looked beautiful. It probably would have been better to see it in person.
Right, because the stream, like you said before, was so compressed, it was hard to tell on the internet just how good it looked.
Right, and they were trying to illustrate the difference, because Sony and Microsoft have like a two-pronged problem, right? They're trying to introduce new hardware, new sexy hardware they're trying to sell consumers. And on top of it, they have to explain this new standard for media that nobody has really been explained why this is happening. I think most people are going to look at this and be like, well, I guess I need to buy a new TV then. Having said that, all these games looked very crisp. They did show off some of that new Spider-Man game that Insomniac is working on. That looked the best. It was a really great looking presentation, tech demo presentation, but until actual hardware is out there and until we can actually see games running on this thing, it's hard to say whether this is an improvement. We did get a reader question. A user emailed us. I want to quickly read the email, and then I'll give you a chance to respond, Taylor. So this is from a guy named Steve, and he writes, looks like I'm going to have to start saving. My problem that I'd like your opinion on is the PS4 Pro versus Project Scorpion. I've pre-ordered PSVR and already have a PS4, but it looks like the PSVR will run better with PS Pro, which they did say. But the PS Pro does not have a 4K Blu-ray player, and the Scorpion does? Now he has a dilemma, and I think we all have this dilemma, and we'll try to answer his dilemma here. Do I get the Xbox Project Scorpion with the 4K player? I love watching movies too. And Microsoft games this generation that I've missed. Or do I stick with the original PS4 that I currently have? Or do I sell what I have and update everything for an upscaled 4K HDR gaming experience? And then he says, then I'm going to have to buy a HDR 4K TV and convince my poor wife that this is a good idea. Thanks. Love the show. Keep it up, Steve. So Taylor, how would you answer Steve's dilemma?
Well, in an ideal world, right, where we all have infinite money, we want the latest and greatest technology, right? Not all of us have that, right? Not all of us have that disposable income. Personally, I will not be upgrading to the PS4 Pro for the sole reason that I haven't been convinced by Sony that it's absolutely necessary. If they're going to continue to support games, if I can play new games on my current PS4, why do I have to replace it? $400 is, it's a big investment. Now, if I didn't own one at all, I would say go for it. It's totally worth it, right? especially if you're also getting into the PSVR, because when you're investing in PSVR technology, you already, you're...
and if for a penny and for a pound.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, so you get what I'm saying, though, right? So if you didn't currently own a PS4 and you were looking to buy one, I would personally buy the PS4 Pro and the PSVR. So I get the best experience, the latest and greatest. Now, that's a lot of money. And so in his specific situation, I prefer the library of games that the PlayStation offers on PS4. I own a lot more PS4 games. I think the exclusives are currently better. That may change with Microsoft. But for me, I would not look to the Xbox One, the Project Scorpio, just yet.
On top of it, all of the Microsoft exclusives are now coming to PC. So right now, you currently don't have a good reason to own an Xbox, other than if you like the form factor or you want something to plug and play, you're invested in the Microsoft ecosystem. But at this point, I'm not sure that that's the majority case for most gamers.
Yeah, and I don't want this to turn into, well, oh no, we're just Sony fanboys and we hate on Microsoft, which is completely not true. Ryan, you've owned an Xbox One. I currently own one. I use it all the time. In fact, I prefer that platform to watch some other apps like Netflix, HBO Go, Hulu, versus using my PS4, because I really hate the navigation on my PS4. I also have my cable box hooked up to it. I really do like that interface. So I do like those features that the Xbox One offers. So I'm not trying to defend one platform versus the other. We like playing on all platforms, even on PC as well. So anywhere where the games can best be played on, that's where we're playing them, right? So in this guy's current situation, where he has a current original, PS4 he could stick with, I would recommend you stick with that. If you were a person who didn't own any of these consoles, I would go with the PS4 Pro. It seems like the best bang for your buck value-wise. And for me, the 4K content, the fact that it's missing that 4K Blu-ray player isn't a huge need for me personally, because I don't watch a ton of movies that are even on. I don't watch 4K Blu-rays, period. So it's not a huge deal for me. It's not a deal breaker. But it seems like that's still going to be top of the line, best way to play the most beautiful games, especially when the PSVR eventually comes out.
I'm going to have a little bit of a different take, and then we will move on from this, I promise. So I did pre-order the PSVR, and I also just pre-ordered the PS Pro. And the reason being is that I've kind of invested myself this generation in the Sony ecosystem.
You also own a Vita, right?
I do own a Vita. I don't really use the Vita that much. I don't think anybody does. But the thing is, I made my choice. I had an Xbox One. The console exclusives on the Xbox for me were not that great. The Halo, the Master Chief Collection, Halo 5 were fun games. We're also talking about Rare Replay. We're also talking about Sunset Overdrive is also in that conversation. Those are probably the four console exclusives that I would hold up as like the best games on Xbox One. And moving forward, Microsoft is putting their stuff out on the PC. So if I want to play, Forza Horizon 3 or the new Gears of War, I can go do that on the PC. I don't have a reason to own the Xbox. So that's why I went ahead and did that. The problem with all of this is that it depends on when you want to buy a new TV. I'm currently in the market for a new TV, and every time you're looking at buying a TV, you have to do all this research. You have to find out what the actual best top of the line thing is, the best bang for your buck. And the problem with buying TVs is it's always a horrible time to buy a TV. You buy one week, and the next week the same one is a lot cheaper. The next week it's a mess. And right now, I would wait and see. If I were in your position on what the TV situation is going to be, 4K is going to become more of a general standard, and that will be happening probably the next CES, which is January of 2017. So I'd wait to see if there are better, more
affordable options, right?
affordable economic options for an upgraded TV. My current model TV is about 6 to 7 years old. I bought it when HD was about 2 or 3 years old, and actually I only upgraded because I couldn't read the text on Mass Effect 2 on my standard definition TV. And after seeing the footage of Mass Effect Andromeda and how beautiful that was, I know that I eventually am ready for that 4K upgrade. So for me, a PS4 Pro makes sense. I've already all in for the PSVR, whatever that is. So for me, that makes sense. I'm not sure in your situation that I would go ahead and put a pre-order down. I would go ahead and wait until you're ready to have that conversation about buying a new TV. And on top of it, we don't really have much details about Project Scorpio other than it's probably going to be coming out way after when the PS4 Pro is happening, and it's going to be more powerful than the PS4 Pro.
We didn't touch on the form factor of the PS4 Pro, and people have been complaining it's kind of an ugly design, which I have to agree with. It looks like...
I heard somebody comment that it kind of looks like the Big Mac of PS4s.
Yeah, exactly. You have these 3 pieces of plastic bezel that appear on the front of the console. You got that all beef patty right there in the middle. And that's your PS4 Pro. That's the best way I can describe it on an audio only podcast.
We were wondering before this news came out how Sony was going to position this very complicated message. And it turns out that Sony hasn't really made a great case for why you should upgrade to a PS4 Pro. I think people like us are definitely in the audience for being interested in upgrading. Taylor, it sounds like, isn't going to be making that decision. I am. But they did not make a great case for it, and they have a really complicated job moving forward to show you why you need this upgrade. Maybe they will eventually create attractive bundles with games that will support this feature. Maybe they'll even bundle, Sony is also an electronics company that also sells TVs. So it's just really weird that, the games division isn't trying to help out the TV edition a little bit better by having a little bit better communication about this stuff to consumers. It's very baffling.
At least it does ship with an upgraded storage, 1 terabytes worth of storage on the new hard drive. So that's already an incremental upgrade. But yeah, it seems like the consensus here is that you really don't have any business buying a PS4 Pro unless you're getting a new 4K ready TV to maximize the performance out of this new console. All right, let's move on to our new game releases for this week.
I love new releases.
All right, let's skim through these. We have a couple here. Mother Russia Bleeds. It's been getting a lot of attention lately. PS4, PC, and Mac. This side-scrolling 2D brawler with pixelated graphics, but appears really ultra-violent and gory. Wow. It just seems like an acid trip, right? It's being published by Devolver Digital. They have a knack for putting out these kinds of games, supporting past games like Hotline Miami 2. Yeah, you got to see screenshots of this thing because it's just blood all over the place.
Right, and apparently there's like a drug mechanic, which the protagonist has is forced to being taking drugs and he gets addicted. And if you don't take the drugs in the middle of your fighting, you're going to get stun locked for a second, not be able to punch and kick. So that's a really interesting idea. I really like Devolver Digital's verve and aesthetic. Hotline Miami and Hotline Miami 2. Say what you will about the gameplay, but those games just have a look and a feel that's so unique and stylized. And I'm definitely Mother Russia Bleeds definitely has my attention.
Yeah, and just to talk about the setting real quick, it's this violent version of like this dystopic USSR during the 1980s. So it has that sort of style to it. You should really look this thing up, and we'll link to it in the show notes because it's very interesting. I've been thinking about contacting Devolver for a review copy because it seems really, really interesting. A new take on the 2D brawler gameplay. We have Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Spirit of Justice out on the 3DS. This is the 6th game in the Phoenix Wright series. I'm a huge fan of the Phoenix Wright series, so I'll be definitely checking this out. It's more of the same gameplay, courtroom drama, RPG. Very, 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 very fun. Ryan, you thinking about checking this one out?
I'm not a big fan of usually of the visual novel adventure game, and Phoenix Wright, Professor Layton. These games haven't really. Professor Layton's kind of a different thing, but these games haven't really spoken to me. And I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued because these games keep coming out, and I keep hearing really positive things about them. You really enjoy these games, and it seems to be doing very well on the DS and 3DS. So, maybe I should try to get back in. I know they recently released that trilogy of the first 3 games that were remastered. Are the Phoenix Wright games on iOS and Android?
Yes. So I actually got that trilogy on iOS on a sale a long time ago. I think I paid like $5 or $10 for it, and it was totally worth it, right? They're the full games that were originally released on 3DS as physical copies. Originally on the DS, I should say. And the touch controls, they were great ports. You could save at any time. It really lent itself well. It was a great port on iOS. I played it on my iPad, so the text was super huge. You could actually scroll through the text a lot quicker than you could on the DS. A few improved visuals here and there. This new game, this Phoenix Wright Spirit of Justice, each game in the series introduced like a small new gameplay mechanic, a new change. And this is continuing with the mood matrix feature, which is almost like, the characters have like these seances and can call upon like dead spirits to provide testimony, like in court. It's super bizarre. It's super Japanese, but they're always fun. I highly recommend, if you're a fan of adventure games, you should definitely check out the Phoenix Wright series. Because you can jump in at any point. You do not need to play past games to really get into the story. You can pick up any of them and still really enjoy it. That's what I would argue. Let's move on to our new video game announcements from this past week.
Here comes a new challenger!
All right, we discussed the PlayStation meeting. The other big news that happened this Wednesday was the Apple event, which, of course, Apple, they announced their new iPhone 7, blah, 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 blah. The gaming-related news was all about Miyamoto coming on stage and announcing the new runner game of Super Mario Run for both iOS and Android. Ryan, what is it? Can you describe what the game sort of looked like on stage?
Yeah, so basically this is a runner game, much like Bit Trip Runner or Temple Run, a lot of these runner-style games that are on phones. It done in the style of new Super Mario Brothers graphics. The team that's working on this worked on the original OG NES Super Mario Brothers, and they're making this phone game, which is huge news for Nintendo. This is megaton news. Nintendo previously said that they would never publish phone games. They would always try to push people onto their hardware. And this is a huge break from that philosophy. Earlier this year, they tried this experiment with Miitomo. I think Miitomo hasn't really borne out well for them.
Yeah, I would agree. Not much of a game there.
Right. And they just found they're kind of adjacent to Pokemon Go. They're involved, but sort of not really. This is a big deal. They're putting Mario, their flagship franchise, on phones, on Apple phones, on Google phones. And it's a big deal. It's a non-Nintendo piece of hardware. There isn't a Nintendo phone. And Miyamoto did say that the game is embracing the one-hand controls that a lot of people prefer on phones, so you can play it more on the go. And it's going to be a paid app. It's not going to be a free-to-play game. They will have a demo for it with the opportunity to pay the full purchase price. They haven't said what that price is going to be. And Nintendo did say it's coming soon to the App Store this holiday, which is really surprising. I am just like, my mouth is on the floor from this announcement.
Yeah, so this game, it's a little bit different from other Endless Runner games in the sense that you have Mario side-scrolling from left to right, not moving from bottom to top or top to bottom like a lot of these other Endless Runner games do. And, you're running through new Super Mario Brothers style levels. He's constantly running from left to right through the stage, and tapping allows Mario to jump or to wall kick for different walls. And of course, you're trying to collect coins, dodge enemies, navigate to the end of the level in order to win. And it's definitely not an endless runner. The levels are finite. So, the design is really, really, really interesting. And you're right, this is huge news for Nintendo, even though it's not their first experiment with a smartphone game, like we talked about before. Miitomo was. I mean, it's huge news that Mario, first party character, is available on a non-Nintendo platform.
I think Super Mario Run has the potential to be one of these Mario 64 style moments for Nintendo. I also have. I just wish that it wasn't in the new Super Mario Brothers aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite template for the Mario games. In Super Mario Maker, every time I see that, I skip the level on principle because I hate the way that looks. And I like 3D Mario games. Don't get me wrong. I actually saw an interesting tweet about this from Wired's Chris Kohler. He held up kind of an unofficial poll. He said, how much would you pay for a skin on Super Mario Run if it was skinned in Super Mario Brothers 3? Would it be $10? Would it be $20? And I said I would pay $20 for a Super Mario Brothers 3 skin for Super Mario Run. And I hate in-app purchases, and I don't typically like runner games. The last runner game I really liked was Bit Trip Runner. This is such a jaw-dropping announcement that I'm really curious what it's going to do for Nintendo. I really wonder what it's going to mean for Nintendo's output for handheld and moving forward their mobile efforts on phones. Just wish it wasn't in the new Super Mario Brothers graphics.
I totally agree with you, and I can almost guarantee you they will put out in-app purchases that change the template, whether it's the original Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2. I would love Super Mario Brothers 2 personally. Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario World. What else am I forgetting? Basically, any of the templates from Super Mario Maker, I would expect them to do in-app purchases for.
Pick any other Mario. Pick Mario is missing. I don't care. Anything but new Super Mario Brothers.
Mario and Luigi, that would be cool.
That would be super cool.
Yeah. I'm with you there, totally. It's my least favorite of all of them, for sure. So let's go over the other bit of news from the Apple event, which was about Pokemon Go. So Apple did reveal a new Apple Watch model, the Apple Watch 2, and along with it, the new announcement by Nintendo and Niantic, along with Apple, that Pokemon Go will appear on the Apple Watch. So what this means is that it will not replace the current Pokemon Go app. It's more of a companion where you get wrist notifications and the names of Pokemon that appear so that as soon as you get that notification on your wrist, you can pull out your phone and go to catch a Pokemon that's nearby. So this is a brand new feature that they just announced. And interestingly enough, it sort of goes against what they were trying to promote with the Pokemon Go Plus accessory, something you had to buy extra, this Pokeball-shaped device that you could pin onto your body somewhere, clip onto your body somewhere, that would vibrate, notify you when to check your phone when a Pokemon Go is when a Pokemon is nearby. But this time around, you can actually look at specifically on your watch which Pokemon you can catch in the area.
This seems to me like this has totally missed the boat. First of all, I don't know anybody who actually owns an Apple Watch. And I suspect that this is probably a better move for Apple than it is for the people behind Pokemon Go. Because I also don't know anybody besides myself who's currently playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Yeah,
I think the fad has kind of been, it was a hot flash in the pan for that first month or so, and they've brought it to other countries where it's a bigger deal. But Pokemon Go isn't real. I don't really see it being played as much as I did when it first came out. I think they've kind of missed the boat on this. Maybe it'll give some added functionality, at least for Apple Watch users, and maybe it'll totally render that Pokemon Go Plus wristwatch thing totally useless.
Well, I think mostly we're out of touch and there's still millions of players, but the player base is dropping significantly from what I've read. A lot of people are unsatisfied with updates to the game. They're banning users who were using third-party apps. And, I'm not playing it anymore because I thought it was shallow. I was catching the same Pokemon over and over and over again in my area, and there just wasn't enough to keep me coming back. I thought it was a really, really interesting experience. But to be honest with you, Ryan, I think both of us are out of touch. We're a little bit older and don't have the time like a lot of kids do who own smartphones to constantly be catching new Pokemon and talking about it amongst their friends. It was really, really, really a huge summer phenomenon, but you're right. It's on the decline. It's a little bit it's too little too late. I agree with you with this new Apple Watch announcement. All right, let's get through the rest of these new video game announcements. Metal Gear Solid 5 Definitive Edition coming out this fall, October 11th. Konami is re-releasing both Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes along with the Phantom Pain and both games DLC all in one package. It's being sold on PS4, Xbox One, and PC for $50. So if you haven't played those yet, highly recommend that you do. This is the best chance to play it. I still think both of those games together are worth $50. But if you've already played through them and maybe you missed out on the DLC, I would say wait for a price drop before trading in your old copy of Ground Zeroes or Phantom Pain, right?
Totally agree.
All right. Last but not least, we have Hot Lava, which is everyone's old school analog childhood game where you do not touch the floor because it's hot lava. Now it's being made into an actual video game. It's the first 3D game from Clay Entertainment of Don't Starve and Invisible Ink fame. If you played those games before, same developer. Very, very, very interesting. Caught a lot of attention because it really captures that childhood nostalgia, that game we all used to play, jumping around from pieces of furniture to furniture, all around your house, not touching the floor. Now you can relive that all over again.
Right, and currently interested players can sign up for the PC beta at the game's official website. We will link to that in the show notes.
Let's talk about what we've been playing recently. Ryan, what have you been playing?
So I've been playing, and I actually reviewed Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Review of that is on our site. And I wasn't expecting to... I didn't know what to expect from this game, to be honest with you. The pre-release marketing around this game has been about its political messages, and I think that the tone of that was totally off. And then you play the game. Deus Ex has a very intriguing world and lore. I definitely really was super interested in Human Revolution, the last game. And, the game's all about like government conspiracies and the Illuminati and all these factions kind of controlling the world's players and stage behind the scenes. And you're playing as Adam Jensen. You're trying to figure out what's happening. And this game kind of evolves that concept a little bit. You're playing as Adam Jensen. It's been 2 years since the last game. You're now based in Prague. You're working for Interpol. And what I would say is that this game is 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. I think its political messages are still very shallow and hollow. The game's main story plot is kind of disappointing. It thinks it's building to lead you to think it's going somewhere, and then the ending, which I won't spoil, but basically the ending is basically a TV news broadcast of the choices that you made during the side quests and main story plot. And then the credits, end of credits stinger is something that you totally see coming. It's so obvious, and it's a setup for the next Deus Ex game. It's utterly disappointing, but on that front, and the gameplay is it's a very average stealth action game. I wouldn't even call it an action game because the stealth option is so overpowering. Jensen has this stealth cloak of ability that basically renders every other upgrade in the Praxis Point system completely useless. Like, you turn on the cloak, you run past guards, you don't have to fight them. You can trivialize every single combat encounter in that game. The final boss fight, there's one boss fight in this game, and you can take him down in 3 ways. You can actually stand and fight him, which I don't recommend, or you can take him out with one-hit knockouts. And both of them are kind of like the stealth option. One is a lethal option, one is a non-lethal option, and it's just it's a bizarre choice gameplay wise. But the world of Deus Ex Mankind Divided is so intriguing. There's such a great level of detail. Some of the dialogue in the side quests asks really interesting questions about the politics of our real world in 2016, and it's just
as what what.
It asks questions about the police state, what the police are actually doing. It asks really interesting questions about what technology means moving forward. Who is advanced technology? Who is it for? Is it for rich people? Is it for everybody? Those are kind of the interesting questions that I really wish it went more into depth on. But instead it just asks the question and doesn't really give you a satisfying answer. So despite the fact that I was super intrigued by it, and it's a really impressive world, and graphically it looks really nice, particularly on the console versions. The PC version also looks really great. Just expects some long load times. It gameplay wise and main story wise, it's disappointing. But if you really like the Deus Ex world, I'd highly recommend checking it out. But other than that, it's a pretty average, middle of the road game.
Check out that review on our site, 1pvs2p.com, on our show blog. We'll also have that linked in the show notes as well, so you can read that on your own. I know you've checked out the Battlefield 1 open beta so far. I recommended that we play it together, and I just never got around to it this weekend. But tell me your impressions about it so far.
So Battlefield 1 is a little bit of a different Battlefield game, right? It's World War I. The guns aren't as fast-paced as a typical Battlefield game, or even Call of Duty. We've kind of gotten used to these Twitch arcade style shooters, squad-based. Battlefield's been a little bit more about the vehicles and objective-based modes than straight team deathmatch. But Battlefield 1 is kind of at a slower pace. The guns, most of the guns aren't full automatics. They're either semi-auto or single shot. And it really changes the pace of the multiplayer experience. And I think for the better. If you really liked like the original Call of Duty or Call of Duty 2, Battlefield 1 is kind of more in that mold. And the only thing that they've really made that's kind of uniquely Battlefield is they've made some different vehicles. You can fly kind of these like World War I biplanes that control much like the Battlefields 3 and 4 like jets did. And on top of it, there are horses in this game that are like seem to be really dominating, at least in the beta phase. The horses are really fast. It's hard to shoot them. It's even hard to shoot the riders on the horse. You have kind of a different gun when you ride the horse, and also a melee option that's really hard to avoid when you're on the ground facing somebody who's on the horse. It's a very different take, and juxtaposed against the like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare that's also coming out this year, and Titanfall 2 and all these other like more futuristic style multiplayer shooters. Battlefield 1 is going the completely opposite direction, and the gameplay in the beta at least definitely reflects that.
Hot takes. Got to check it out, especially because it's still unclear how long EA is going to keep that up. It's still unknown when that open beta is going to end, but the open beta is available on all platforms, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. So if you haven't gotten around to checking it out and you're interested, now is the time to do that, because it could end at any moment. So I've been playing Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, which came out earlier this year. And I have to say, easily, hands down, the best looking game on PS4 so far. I never played Uncharted 1 through 3, and I didn't feel too lost playing this one. They do a good job of explaining the backstory within the first 2 hours of the game, but the gameplay is just phenomenal. You can play the game stealthily, where you're avoiding every encounter, sneaking past guards, on your way to hunt for treasure in these absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful environments. But me personally, I find the combat, the cover-based shooting, to be pretty easy, and I've always preferred open combat over stealth. I really don't have the patience to play through a lot of these stealth games. So if I ever get to Deus Ex Mankind Divided, I'll probably go the open gunplay route also. Even though it might be harder for most, I prefer it with Uncharted 4 also. It's just a phenomenal game. The voice acting, the charm, the humor of the characters, the story it tells. It's this really like grand Indiana Jones-like epic, from what I understand. Continues the very strong tradition of the past Uncharted games as well. But I mean, every single chapter seems like a huge climax, which is a great thing. Keeps you really, really engaged. And I'm about halfway through it, and I absolutely love it. I can't wait to finish it and see what the final ending is all about. But I've also been playing Overwatch, and I want to mention that because, I play that here and there. I don't play it too much every week, but I did want to check out the brand new Eichenwald map that just got put out with the new Season 2 of the competitive play. And I have to say, it's one of my new favorite maps. It's really difficult to attack. Like it's a payload map. So basically, you're trying to storm this German castle, which, as I understand it from the story, is Reinhardt's home castle. I think I'm not too sure, but anyway, it's really sort of easy to defend the castle. It's very difficult to attack, but I love it. I love the layout. I love the setting. It's very cool. If you haven't gotten back to Overwatch, you should definitely check it out. Now that the summer games are over, you can play the new Eichenwald map exclusively now in the weekly brawl, just so you can familiarize yourself with that, because I'm sure they're going to roll that into the quick play, the normal map rotation. It's a free upgrade, so I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. And last but not least, I've been playing Luminous Puzzle and Music on and off while I've been commuting on Android. It's also available on iOS, I believe, for $3. And if you've played Luminous before, it's a puzzle game. Originally released on PSP. There have been newer ones since then. It was also a Vita launch title, and it's great. The touch controls are great, perfect for the style of game. If you're not familiar with Luminous, it's similar to Tetris.
It's like a puzzle rhythm game. To me,
Yeah.
the original Luminous didn't really like click with me, and I like puzzle games. I also like rhythm games, and to me, it just it didn't. It leans more on the music stuff than I would be more comfortable with. From what I understand, it's a block based game, and on the PSP, the original one actually, it was more a horizontal format.
Yes.
And there was this kind of like line that would move across the screen in time with the rhythm of the music, and you had to kind of move the block. That part.
Yeah, it's like a match. It's like a match 3 style game, but they're the blocks are 2 different colors, a gray and orange. Actually, depending on the skin, the shapes and the colors may change slightly. And as you play through Luminous, you can complete certain challenges, like in this app, or go through like an endless mode where you're just trying to go for a high score, last as long as you can before reaching the top. Just like in Tetris, where if your blocks start to get above the top line, it's game over. But it's a lot of fun. The music is really great and catchy. It's great as sort of a quick game you can play for 5 to 10 minutes. The rhythm game, it's sort of light on the rhythm. The rhythm really doesn't matter too much. There is this tracker line. The only way to clear blocks and lines is, like you said, this constantly moving tracking cursor from left to right. And you sort of want to time your biggest combos, blocks that match up, with one pass of that line, because as soon as the line comes back to pass it again, it clears those blocks, empties that space so you can drop new blocks.
I have a quick question for you about the play field. So on phones, I imagine that the play field can be vertical or horizontal, and I'm wondering if that changes a little bit of the Luminous dynamic, because originally this was kind of a horizontal game, and now with this phone version, I imagine most people are going to be playing with their phones vertically, so it's probably a smaller play field, and so that kind of maybe changes the dynamic a little bit?
I would say the play field is narrower but taller, right? Because you're playing in portrait mode on a phone. You know what? I never tried flipping the phone, turning it, horizontally sideways in landscape mode. I don't know that the game supports it. I really doubt it, because the way the menus are shown, it's always vertical. I don't think you can rotate it and change the play field. That to me would completely change the dynamic. Now you're working with a wide and short space versus a narrow and tall space. To me, it really doesn't make a huge difference, because as you're stacking blocks, you can perform bigger combos the higher you go, right? You have the potential for lining up more blocks all at a time. And there's also, and I'm not sure if this was in the past Luminous games, but special blocks that allow you to chain all the same color all along, so you can perform and clear more blocks one at a time if they're all interconnected. And there's also a special blocks that allows you to scramble your board a little bit. So if you're really stuck, if you start piling up and you're afraid you're going to lose, and one of these special scramble blocks comes along, how it shuffles the blocks is really helpful sometimes when clearing things that you didn't realize were there on the board. So for $3, it's worth a shot. Not too much money. A lot of replay value there. Great music, great soundtrack. especially if you're a Luminous fan before, you should definitely check it out. The touch controls are great. I don't feel like I'm missing out because I don't have a directional pad and buttons to rotate. They work very well, even if you're playing one-handed. All right, we're running out of time. We ran a little bit over, so we're going to skip over our usual bonus stage segment. Thanks for listening. That's it for this week's episode. If you liked our show, please subscribe, rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher. It would be a huge help if you let us know what you think about our show.
You can also listen to us on Google Play Music, TuneIn, Clamor, or our website, which is 1pvs2p.com, or search for us using your favorite podcast app. All of our sources for this week's big stories have been posted at the link in the show notes.
You can like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at 1pvs2p_podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and Twitch. And as always, we want to thank Phonetic Hero for the use of his songs for our show, Coffee Stomp and Super Manly Brothers X. Both of those songs are part of the compilation project Chiptunes Equals Win.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for your comments and feedback. We look forward to reading more of those on the show. We will see you next week.